Hey YouTube, Awesome Rider here. This is going to be my video on every Megazord I want to see from each season of Power Rangers for the Lightning Collection. So, as of this recording, it is when we recently got news that we will be hopefully soon finally be dipping into Lighting Collection Megazords. So I thought this would be a good time to do my type of video, what I've done before for villains and regular Rangers, of getting one pick from each season that I would like to see. And this is largely just based around my personal favorites and ones I would just kind of like to see come out in a way that makes sense. But this isn't by no means what I think they should do or release first, because they should never listen to the fans when it comes to that. This is just kind of more for fun, what I'm looking forward to most of the Megazord releases. So let's start at the beginning with the adaptation when they were going to use Bioman. No, I'm just kidding. Was it Bioman? Anyway. MMPR. I'm actually only going to have one pick. I know there's 3 seasons, but, you know, we know we're getting the Dino Megazord, probably Dragonzord, all that par for the course stuff. But I only have one regular MMPR pick, which is the Shogun Megazord. I mean, in general, this is one of my personal favorite Megazords, but also this, in all likelihood, would have been the next release in the Legacy line, and it felt like we were this close to getting it before the switch happened, and it's unfortunate we never did, so I'm really excited to get this one. Not to mention, we're kind of in desperate need of a version in the US that actually has the correct white arm instead of the pink one, which would be nice. I'm a sucker for the Megazords that have the individual robots that become the Megazord. It would be awesome if they would all separate and also be articulated, but I would also totally buy a regular Shogun Megazord and then just 5 individual Shogun Zords that are articulated that don't combine, because I love their designs. I guess I sort of lied in that I have a side MMPR pick from Alien Rangers, and this wouldn't be a combiner or anything, but I would totally buy, like, to scale Battleborg figures, or even just 6-inch Battleborg figures. I would totally buy either version. And to be honest, I wouldn't be mad if all of these were just big, awesome-looking figures and they weren't combiners, just because that's all I really care about at the end of the day. Now for Zeo, even though this isn't my favorite of the Zeo ones, I would go for the Super Zeo Megazord for similar reasons to Shogun, in that I love the Megazords that are little robots that become the bigger robot, and I love the idea of being able to have articulated versions of the Core 5, whether it would be a separate release or one that combines. I'm not sure how they're going to do it. I mean, they've done some really cool stuff with combinable stuff and articulated with the Dino Fury Zord so far, so I'm hopeful, but that's the one I would pick for that. I'm going to go against the grain with that for Turbo, though. Even though I would love to see Turbo Rescue Zords with the individual robots, I'm going to actually pick the regular Turbo Megazord for Turbo, because that's my personal favorite from that season. It's just got such a good classic Sentai Robo Power Rangers Megazord look, and I'm really looking forward to getting a Megazord figure of it. And I'm talking about, again, these would be the bigger combiner ones, or bigger figures, not like a 6-inch scale. Then, speaking of classic looks, for In Space, I would pick the Astro Megazord, an all-time favorite Megazord of mine, another one with a really awesome classic look. Not to mention, I appreciate how unique it is for being one of the only to not be a combiner robot, that it's just a spaceship that transforms. I wish we could get more of those. Like, not oversaturated, but we haven't done one in like a gazillion years, to be exact. For Lost Galaxy, I didn't really have one that I specifically was like, oh yeah, I really want that one, so I'm just going to go with the Galaxy Megazord, because it's another one with a good classic look, and I wouldn't mind it also having like a Lights of Orion, you know, customizable parts. Then for Lightspeed Rescue, I almost went for the trains, but I've decided on the Omega Megazord, because I've always had a soft spot for that one. I think it's got a really unique look. I always loved the crawler. Back in the day, I didn't collect as many Lightspeed Zords, and that was the only one I got, so again, that's why I have a soft spot for it. Not to mention, you could also do Lights of Orion customizable parts from the team-up, which is really cool. Time Force, I would go with the Q-Rex. I think this would make a really awesome one. I don't know if I would want them to replicate the little the little remote morpher thing we did here. Morph! Missiles! Remember that? But I would love for it to have a feature, maybe, if it wasn't an articulated one of the self-transforming. Maybe have a version of that. I don't know. But it's definitely my favorite design from that season, so that's the one I would want. For Wild Force, this was an easy pick. It's the Predazord. I mean, not just for the fact that it's one of my favorite Megazords in that season, but that one is impossible to find at a reasonable price on the aftermarket. It's one of the only Wild Force Zords I don't have in my collection, and at least a couple times a month I get comments on my old retro reviews of Wild Force Megazord asking why I haven't reviewed the Predazord, and that's because I never got it when I was little, and it's impossible to find for not like over $100. It's like insane. So that's the first one I would want to see. For Ninja Storm, this is one that probably wouldn't be practical for an early release for Ninja Storm, or early release period, but we technically never got it here, which is the Revolver Mammoth. So I wouldn't mind seeing that, because it would give us a release of it, and it would allow me to complete my collection. At least I don't think did we get a release of it here? I don't think we didn't get a releases of it, or I didn't have it, or both. It depends on what timeline you're in. Now for Dino Thunder, I had a hard time deciding because there's another hole in my collection here, which is the Mezzodon, which I thought about picking. And you guys probably know the White Dino Ranger is my favorite from that, so I almost wanted to pick that Megazord. But I had to go with the classic Thundersaurus. I really like that Megazord, and I think it would be really cool to see in a more accurate style that looked like the show, that was very posable. Speaking of very posable, for SPD, I think the Delta Command Megazord, or the Delta Squad Megazord, excuse me, would be the perfect one. Because it always had those cool fights where it would like hide behind the buildings and stuff. And I think that would be a really cool one to have that looked a little more accurate and you might actually be able to do some poses with. For Mystic Force, I had another internal battle. I almost wanted to select Korag's Volkaiser, because that's another one we didn't get here. I did get it. It was one of my first Sentai mechas, not to brag. But I thought that would be a nice one because we didn't get it here. It's a cool one to have, you know, and even if I already have the Sentai one, it's a Zord I really like and I would love to get a Hasbro version of. But I gotta go with the Titan Megazord. That's another favorite. I think it could be really cool if they pull off the transformation modes with the Dragon well. Not to mention, I think it will be another awesome one to see articulated figures for their individual robot Zords. For Overdrive, I don't know. I like all the Overdrive Zords, I really do. But I couldn't think again of one that I was just like, yeah, I really want that one. So I guess just the Drive Max Megazord leading to the Ultra Zord ultimately, because I think that's a really cool Ultra Zord. I like the ones where actually, I mean, it's a heavy robot, but it's not like on a cart or in a wheelchair or something. It's like actually standing up. So I think a release that would ultimately lead to that would be cool. Jungle Fury makes it really easy for some awesome posable ones that transform, and I think Jungle Pride is the perfect one for that. I would love to have one that transformed, and you could also get really dynamic poses out of that, and I think that would work really well. For RPM, I'm going to go with Gold and Silvers. I almost went with Valve Max because I kind of always had a soft spot for how unique that looks. But I think this could make a really cool one if it's posable. Was this Skyfleet? I can't remember the name of it, honestly. But Gold and Silver's mecha. For Samurai, this is another one. There's a lot of ones where I almost went for one that's more of a favorite. Because I like the Clawzord a little bit more than the Samurai Megazord because it's more unique. But I also really like the Samurai Megazord, and again, here in the US, we never got the fully transformable origami gimmick, so I think just for the sake of completion, it would be nice to get a full-on Samurai Megazord release that had the origami modes, the individual animal modes, and then the Megazord mode. Not to mention it could look really cool if it's in any way posable like the Dino Fury Megazord. For Megaforce, I was always a big Gosei Ultimate fan. It was always my favorite, but in recent years, I still love you Gosei Ultimate, but Gosei Great's really taken over. I think it's a really underrated, cool mecha design, and I would love to get a like Hasbro Lightning Collection version for this. For Super Megaforce, it was a no-brainer. I would go again for the Q-Rex. A Legendary Megazord would be cool one day too, but the Q-Rex is definitely my favorite design from that season, and having a Lightning Collection version of that would be really awesome. Now for Dino Charge, I think I would go with Gold's mecha, because again, I'm thinking about this a lot in the ones that would look cool at being able to pose, and that one has a lot of cool posing potential, and you could have it come with like that cape from when it was evil for a hot minute. And I think that would be a cool release for that. Ninja Steel. I had a hard time. I don't mind the mecha for Ninja Steel. The Ninja Steel and Ninja Mecha get a lot of heat for being weird. And they are weird, but I kind of like them for that. But I couldn't decide which ones I would want to see. I kind of liked that we got little robot figures that were posable in the Sentai Artisan line. But I'm not sure about that one, honestly. Maybe I would go just for the main mecha, just because I can't think of one, or, you know, the All Six Rangers one was pretty unique, but I couldn't think of one of that where I would think, oh my god, I immediately want it. And like, again, this isn't an anti-Ninja Steel rant or anything, but Ninja Steel's definitely at the end of my list in regards to picks. Now, Beast Morphers, I think will be obvious, it's Ace. The thing about the Beast Morphers release for Ace is it does look good and it's posable, but those Zords did feel cheap, and I would love another crack at it, because I think doing a Lightning Collection higher end version could result in a really cool Megazord figure for Ace that would be really simple to do. For Dino Fury, I'm just not sure, because we just got the Zords, and you know, they're pretty good as is. I'm not saying they couldn't do higher end collection versions of them, but because so far the Dino Fury Zords are very solid, I just can't imagine wanting more right now, I guess. You know what if you know what I mean? So for right now, I'm going to leave this pick blank. I might do an update on this video down the line, you know, and then maybe that'll be after Dino Fury Zords all release, so maybe I'll have a pick then. If I had to give one pick, I would just say Kishi Ryujin, only because there's a good chance we might not get that in the regular line. So I don't think they would probably release something like that for Dino Fury as part of their collector's ones right off the bat, but if I had to pick one for that, it would be that. As for non-main show stuff, I would absolutely love a Hyperforce Megazord in any form. You know, even if it wasn't a Lightning release and it was done kind of in the style or quality of the main line, just any type of Hyperforce Megazord or Zords released would be amazing. And then, of course, you have the comics, where you have a couple options like the Megazords. They aren't my favorite, but it would be really cool to get figures of them. But I think the Gravezord would be a slam dunk because, even if it's not combinable, but that's a really cool one because it would be cool, unique, it's from the comics, but you also might catch some nostalgic fans that think it's just MMPR related and want to pick it up. Not to mention, I think it's a fairly cool design. Honestly, even when they're not my favorites design, anything on the comics list is at the top for me. That's what I want to see the most. But that is my list for now. Like I said, down the road, I might do an update list to this. We'll see. But let me know what your guys' top picks for Megazord you want to see is in the comments. Until next time, don't forget, like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications for my videos. Dawson Rider, signing out.